I'm very honored to welcome our next guest, Liran Raizer. He's the current CPO of BionicHIVE. He helped found BionicHIVE back in 2014, and he was their first CEO. They got their first big seed money back in 2016, and ever since then, it's clearly been great for them. And in 2020, Liran moved to be the CPO of BionicHIVE, and as he tells me, usually the companies where the original entrepreneur moves to be the CPO are the most successful, like Facebook, etc. So that's good omens for them. Anyways, without further ado.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. It is a great honor to stand here. It's actually my second time in the Technion. The first one was trial that I made a few years ago when I was just a QA tester in one of the high-tech company that works for the defense industry, and now being here with the company that I'm one of the founders, it's a great honor. With me is Coral today, helping us to put that together. We are less than a 20 people company, so spending a time on such an event, it's a great honor, but there are costs for it. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to talk real quickly on a few things. I will give you a quick overview of BionicHIVE. I would like to dive a little bit into the way that we are developing the product. And one last thing that I wanted to do after a talk with Benjamin here is just to give you kind of an idea what a company like BionicHIVE would look for on graduates, engineers like yourself, and how the industry is starting to look on robotics. So about the company, first of all, we are developing only one, like every startup, starting with one product. Our product is the SQUID. It's a fleet of robots that is enabled to turn any warehouse to an automatic warehouse. Founded in 2016, we actually founded a little bit before that, but all of us were being technology guys. We didn't know anything about the market, so we started a little bit earlier with market research. It's privately owned by good and reliable investors, and the headquarters is in Sapirim. I'm sure that none of you have heard of it, but Sderot is more famous city that is really close to us. And we also say something by being there, located in the Negev, and proving a lot of people that good things can come also from the Negev. I mentioned a bit about learning the market. Every startup that develops something needs to learn on the market, and we started and discover a lot of things. One of the things that we discovered is that the market that we were targeting into was suffering from a very low technology solutions when we've seen it first. And suddenly there was, as of the e-commerce and other stuff, there was a lot of companies that ran into that market, and we were kind of looking for our own angle in the product and to see how can we reach out the market from a different perspective. The most important thing is that we are able to offer our customer automation tomorrow, meaning is that we are developing a full solution that can be implemented in a warehouse and turn right away to something that can bring value. I want to show you a quick movie how the system works. So basically, it's a fleet of robots that aligning themselves on the floor and driving just like a regular machine that navigate and see itself in the environment. It does have some sensors to avoid obstacle, for example, or navigate. As soon as it needs, it can reach out to these rails, and each robot can just climb up to any height. Imagine that warehouses are very high. And as soon as we're taking these boxes after identifying the specific payload, the robot can also climb up to the ceiling, drive on walls, and allowing the warehouse to become fully automated, but on the same infrastructure, the same boxes, same rack shelf, and allowing the same method of work. Diving a little bit into what the product is contained is actually based on two main components. The first one is very obvious. It's the robotic fleet. By the way, this picture have been taken in a real environment where the same work that the huge machine here is doing, this little robot can do, and in most efficient way, because it can do it at night, it can do it with no vacation, no headaches, no excuses. Robotic fleet have a lot of capabilities that we are developing in different type of technologies. It does have a specific behavior, and that gives a very unique approach to our solution. The second one is the RTTM. It's actually an algorithmic engine that runs the fleet of the robot in real time according to different demands that comes in from different type of data that is being crunched together. Just imagine that there is orders coming in, there is different priorities, different type of volatility that needs to be handled, and things like that. It is self-learning all the time of the current situation, but also the world picture, and activating the fleet in the most efficient way. One thing to say here, we are one-source solution. The meaning is that we're not developing a system that need to integrate to different one. It can be as a standalone system that gets this data and enable the customer to get value. Few respectable companies that you can see their logos here were testing our technology in their facilities. These robots have doing a lot of kilometers around the globe, being demonstrated in real environment. And for us as a company and as an R&D company, it was very beneficial to learn the challenges in the real environment and not just in a lab, not in a controlled area, but in a real world. The little company here in the bottom decided that we're serious enough, and they also being one of our respectful investor, and that is a good credibility for us. Second thing is I really want to show you a bit what's the difference between system and solution. System could be something that needs to be integrated in order to bring the value to the customer. A solution or a holistic solution, you could see that also in Sagi's lecture on Percepto, is something that brings the value all together and taking care of every bit that the customer is need in order to make that as a solution and not just a system that needs to be integrated. We are developing in 3 major branches of technology. Our technological branches are the machine behavior, which we are developing our own electronics, for example, It can monitor. It can operate the different degrees of freedom in the way that we want. A software, which I would call it like a conventional software engineering, meaning is that there is an architecture of handling this robots fleet and understanding what exactly needs to be done according to each customer situation and react accordingly. And the last thing is the mechanics. Again, a lot of companies are kind of deliberating if they need to do that by themselves, if Israel have this thing to offer. We're not known for a lot of robotic like Italian market or the US market, which have a lot of companies that doing their own robots. So we also have that in order to make the whole thing as a solution. One last thing just to say about development for commercial companies. We need another substantial, and this is the business development, which is also a development. It's not here because it's not technological, but it is important for the company. Most of the founders came from this area. You can identify some of the things here. It's not the real world because it's always something that have a lot of budget. Great teams are working together, and sometimes it's not very efficient, but there are a lot of achievements. And this is where most of the founders came from and brought their knowledge and experience into the company. Few words about the transition or the transformation that the robotic world is experience. If you're going to see on the left, this is something that we've seen, I think, from the late 60s, early 70s. This is a robotic arm that can be programmed to do a pattern of things. It does have two effective modes, meaning either doing the same pattern that it was programmed and a panic mode. Please stop and don't kill me. The other one is a good example for a different type of robotic arm that can actually being able to learn few patterns. If you'll take from that robot the things that it needs to grab, it will stop. It will say that there is an error. It will look for it around. Maybe it's fault. Maybe it's not there. But it's more a multi-operational mode. We can teach these kind of robots to do many things. It is a human-friendly. The meaning is that there are in the industry already some standards that allowing us to work with people. It's called HRC, Human Robot Collaboration, and it's very important for this transition. Basically, if we are not having that kind of standards set, then we need to, instead of cage, we need to take the people out. The fact that we can work with people is allowing us to gradually move from this type of robots to a new era where there's not going to be human around, but it will take time and it's cost effective. It is autonomous versus the automatic robot that used to be. I mentioned that earlier. The deliberation of what are we doing as a company in-house and what are we taking out for an outsource. It's always there. Again, commercial companies having that kind of thinking in every day. For just one example, for in-house, we definitely need a lot of knowledge. We need to gain that knowledge. We need to acquire the right engineers, the right people to execute that. In the outsource, it's a matter of, paying the money, not getting the unique behavior that you want sometime, but it saves time. So there is always something like that on the table. The difference between applying things that work in a different way to our way is a great advantage. Are we going to that direction, or are we going to innovate something right from scratch? And that's things that we have in mind. And the difference that I mentioned before, the difference between system, which needs other system in order to operate, to one solution that can help the customer right away and bring value. One thing that happened in the last, I think, 10 years, but definitely is here. It's existing in everyday life in the last 5 years or 6 years. It's the fusion between many things together. And I know that most of you are mechanical engineers in the near future. There is a great importance to people like Oren and other people like Alon, that kind of integrating more capabilities. There's always, the baseline. Something needs to work, something needs to move, something needs to manipulate. But there's so many other things that needs to integrate into it that we as a developer cannot lock ourselves to only one field of expertise. It's really important to open the mind and to learn a lot of things, to be able to look at the picture in a wide way. You can see how many times there is a multi in that slide, and all of that is actually compacted into a very small robots. One last thing, something that, if I may say, with my very lack of experience in academic institution, I have to admit that I never graduate high school. But something that I really want to show you from my experience, the engineers of tomorrow needs to be with certain capabilities or certain qualities in order to integrate into the world and being able to be also successful. There is a lot of complex architecture in these companies, specifically in startups, that needs to be focused on the product, but on the other hand, need to look for opportunities to shorten the time, make the product less expensive. Things like that are very complex, and it's right from the top level management to the last employee in the company. Hands-on experience, a lot of people are coming over and we are interviewing them. They have great skills as far as CAD and other stuff, but they don't know which side the screw is getting in or out. I mean, it might be very simple to people who experience that, but from knowing that from the CAD is a challenge. Be ready for a challenging journey. That's another thing. We always learning from our success, because this is the easy part. We need also to debrief and learn from failures, because it's educating us a lot. And last thing is values. We are developing robot. We try to keep our people and employees not a robots. So we definitely encourage values that are still, only part of humans and not robots. I think we have few things to show here, and this is the last slide, just to show you that doing that, it's also a lot of fun. Some of it is real testing. I mean, the movie in the center is our CTO testing the new way that the camera is scanning the line. Okay, a lot of things are tested in the old-fashioned way. Let's see it work. So that's it. Thank you very much.